Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar Power in Partnership, Transforming Adult Education and Workforce Impact Through Policy and Collaboration. So before I turn it over to our wonderful panelists and presenters, I'm going to share a word from our generous sponsors at Essential Ed. And we want to thank them for always partnering with us, and stay tuned for their share this.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Danielle Doyle, President of Essential Education, and I want to start by saying adult education is the foundation for opportunity. It strengthens families, communities, and our workforce, and that's exactly why we're proud to support this conversation on policy and advocacy today. At Essential Education, we share the same mission, helping learners build the skills they need for life, work, and beyond. We focus on helping adults reach their goals through comprehensive learning programs that cover adult basic education, high school equivalency, and workforce readiness. And we support educators and learners through our TABE Academy and CASA Schools Academy, which covers TABE 1314 and CASA Schools with practice tests and data that automatically sync to our learner dashboard. GED Academy and HiSET Academy with over 5,000 practice tests and activities and practice tests that mirror the real exam. Work Essentials, which helps learners find, get, and keep jobs while building the soft skills that they need to thrive in the workplace. They also earn badges and certifications along the way to show employers their progress. Computer Essentials, which builds everyday digital skills from basic computer use and online safety to using workplace applications. Almost every job today requires some level of tech know-how, and this program gives learners the confidence to use digital tools effectively. Money Essentials, which helps them learn how to budget, save, and plan for long-term financial stability so they can make informed decisions and become financially independent. And then other programs like Mind Play Reading and the Dreamcatcher program, which support reading fluency and career exploration and goal setting, helping learners strengthen core skills while planning their next step towards education and employment. And these are all backed by our prescriptive learning technology, and that's a big part of what makes our program so effective. It starts by identifying what each learner already knows and what they still need to learn, and from there, the system automatically creates a personalized learning path for those learners. That way, they can focus on the areas that they need, and they don't have to waste time on what they already know. And it keeps them engaged, helps them make quicker progress, it makes life easier for the instructors too. Our built-in reporting tools make it simple for teachers and administrators to track progress and see results in real time. Instructors can quickly see which skills have been mastered, who needs extra support, and how much time they're spending in the program. And administrators can easily pull reports to show outcomes to funders or meet compliance requirements. And no juggling spreadsheets or extra systems. Everything they need is right here in one easy to use platform. And we're seeing incredible results. For example, one of our partners, Rio Salado College, achieved 243 HSE completions last year using Essential Education. We've highlighted their success in an impact report that will be included in COABE's follow-up materials. It's a great example of what can happen when educators have the right tools to support their learners. And I'll leave you with two voices from that report, one from a student, one from an instructor. The student said, "The Essential Education program has helped me improve my English skills, complete my high school equivalency diploma, and reach my academic goals." And the instructor said, "The evaluation and progress tracking tools built into the program have been very useful in guiding my instruction, class management, and goals." Once again, thank you, COABE, for leading such an important conversation. Together, we're strengthening the impact of adult education not just through policy, but through the daily work happening in the classrooms and programs across the country. If you'd like to learn more about essential education, you can and how we can support your program goals, visit essentialed.com or scan the QR code on the screen to request a demo. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the webinar. It's going to be a great session.
Thank you. Thank you, Essential Education, and welcome. My name is Karyn Goven. I'm the Director of Innovation for COABE and support the Workforce Committee. I hope everyone watching the video has seen all the great opportunities provided by COABE. We are so glad you could join us for today's webinar, Power in Partnership, Transforming Adult Education and Workforce Impact Through Policy and Collaboration. Today's conversation, hosted by COABE and our wonderful public policy partners, comes at a critical time when we face uncertainty about the future of adult education and WIOA. This webinar will take a closer look at public policy and the current developments, explore opportunities for collaboration across education and workforce sectors, and discuss how we can elevate adult education without losing sight of our mission. We know and value adult education and understand our participants' growth both personally and professionally. Understanding how to align workforce and our programs to use partners to advocate the work we do is key. Adult education is one of the nation's most powerful, yet many times hidden talent pipelines for workforce. Whether you're an educator, program leader, or advocate, this session is designed to equip you with the insights, strategies, and inspiration to make your collective voice heard and your impact stronger. Thank you again for attending, and let's get started with this important conversation about how we can continue to champion adult education. I'm going to hand it off to Erin to introduce our great panel.
Thank you so much, Karyn, for that wonderful introduction and for setting the stage for today's discussion. I also want to take a moment to highlight Karyn's incredible background and the expertise that she brings to the table, especially when it comes to workforce and adult education advocacy. So Karyn is the Director of Innovation at COABE and has been a driving force in adult and community education for more than 20 years. From teaching and curriculum design to leadership and program administration, she's built collaborative systems that support learners at every stage. And in her work in Detroit, she created 9 learning labs to help adults improve their education and transition to careers, among many other things that she has done in that 20-year tenure in adult ed. I am also excited to introduce our other presenters today. First, Elyse Wasch. She's the vice president at Penn Hill Group. She brings more than 25 years of experience in legislative policy and strategy with deep knowledge of the congressional appropriations process, because goodness knows we need to know that right now, and the reauthorization processes. She's worked closely with members of Congress and administrations to advance education, workforce, and library policy, securing funding through major legislation like the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan. Her expertise ensures that adult education remains front and center in national policy conversations. Next, Dr. Debbie Faubus-Kendrick, Director of the Crawford County Adult Education Center. With over 40 years in education, Dr. Faubus-Kendrick has served as a teacher, counselor, coach, principal, and director. She's deeply committed to student success, educator support, and building strong learning communities. Her program was the winner of 2 awards recently due to the exceptional work. Then, Heather Tharp, Career Development Consultant at West Virginia Adult Education. Heather spent the past 14 years in adult education, working as an instructor and now as a career development consultant. She's passionate about helping learners build confidence, explore career paths, and achieve self-sufficiency. Heather also serves as a youth leader and community advocate and currently represents West Virginia as our State Advocates for Adult Education Fellow. And then finally, a very brief introduction of myself. I'm Erin Vobornik, Initiatives Director at COABE. I've been with COABE since 2021, starting now as a SAFE Fellow and now working full-time here with national initiatives. So I'm thrilled to be facilitating today's conversation and to be learning from such experienced and passionate group of leaders. With that, Let's dive in and hear from our first presenter, Elyse from Penn Hill Group.
Thank you so much, Erin. It's great to be here with all of you. It's to see so many names and faces from across the country that are joining. I'm here to provide the context and why it matters now more than ever to work with your partners in your communities, your workforce partners, specifically to jointly advocate for adult education. Many of you know that we are in a federal government shutdown right now, but I feel like it's important that we kind of look over the landscape of this year to provide additional context. This year has certainly been a challenging one when it comes to federal funding generally, and specifically when it comes to adult education. It took until March of this year, halfway through the federal fiscal year, which runs from October 1st to September 30th, to resolve federal funding for fiscal year 2025, which was accomplished through a rest of the fiscal year continuing resolution, or CR. That's probably the term you hear most often in the news. That meant that programs would be funded at the same level as in the prior fiscal year, which was fiscal year 2024, which for adult education left it in a decent spot. It meant that adult education would be level funded at $715.5 million, which seeing that some programs might have gotten a haircut, including adult education, keeping funding level was certainly a best case scenario at that time. The one difference with that particular CR that was passed in March is that it did not include typical language that would have tied the hands of the administration to follow the funding levels from that prior year or fiscal year 2024 appropriations report language. And that led this current administration to outright cancel several programs, fund them at a lesser amount. As you know, there was efforts to do reductions in force at the Department of Education as part of an effort to close the Department of Education. And that put a lot of programs on unsure footing. And lo and behold, on July 1st, the administration, through the Department of Education, withheld funding for state adult education grants, as it did for several other programs. It took nearly that whole month of July, with pressure from advocates like yourself and members of Congress, to get the administration to release that funding. So then flash forward to September, which is the month where Congress comes together and tries to find a way forward for funding for the next fiscal year, which starts on October 1st. But there was not a way for the parties to come to an agreement. And so on October 1st, the government shut down, and we are now in day 28 of the shutdown. The longest shutdown was 35 days in the first Trump administration, and we are getting close to breaking that record, only a few days away from 35 days now. The stakes are very high. On the one hand, and this is what Democrats have been arguing, there are tax subsidies that expire at the end of the year, which will increase healthcare premiums if they are not extended. Those healthcare premiums will kick in on January 1st, and they will, in many cases, double for many folks looking for health insurance. And this is all going to become apparent on November 1st, which is Saturday, when open enrollment opens for the Affordable Care Act plans. But many people have already seen letters from their insurers letting them know that their healthcare premiums are going to skyrocket as of January 1st. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, the federal government shutdown means that there's very real effects about to happen on Americans starting also on November 1st. Funding for nutrition assistance through SNAP and WIC, Head Start funding, LIHEAP, which supports home energy assistance, and Essential Air Service, which connects rural air travel. Well, all the funding for that will run out on November 1st. In addition to the fact that federal employees are not being paid. There was an effort to pay the military for their first paycheck that they missed, and some others, but it's unclear if those efforts can be sustained. And so the Senate is the only body that is in session. The House has been out of session since before October 1st. They have not come back into session to negotiate. The Senate has been voting very many times. I think there are 13 or 14 times on the CR that the House passed, and has not come to any way to get to the 60 vote threshold that is necessary in the Senate to get to a continuing resolution. That continuing resolution doesn't address the healthcare situation, which is what Democrats have been saying. They need to have some way forward because healthcare costs are going to otherwise go up to such a dramatic amount that they would like to see something resolved on that, or at least a path forward to addressing that before they give in and support continued funding. So yesterday, the American Federation of Government Employees, or AFG as it is known, that represents many federal employees, they have started to urge an end to the shutdown. That may change some minds, or that is the hope that it will change some minds to bring people back to the table to negotiate. But there was another vote today in the Senate, and it did not sway Democrats to come forward and support this continuing resolution because they feel like there is still no movement on the healthcare issue. So how will this resolve? Well, many believe the president will have to get involved and have to help make some kind of deal. The Republicans are looking to him to provide that leadership. He is currently on a trip to Asia. So he is not here in this country and has not been focused on where things are with the federal government shutdown. So we will have to see when he returns if that can bring people back to the negotiation table, find a way forward. But you know, bringing it back full circle to what does this mean for adult education? Well, the future of federal funding for adult education is at stake. As you'll see here, the Senate appropriations bill for this current fiscal year 2026 would provide level funding for adult education at $715.5 million. The House, though, in its bill would provide it would provide no funding for adult education. So, you know, in terms of how we get to a place where we resolve these funding issues, it's going to be up to you and the your stakeholders, your partners, to come together and provide a resolution to, you know, to push forward with Congress to get the government funded again and bring adult education funding home for the learners that you work with, your workforce partners who need adult learners to fill jobs in your area. I think that what we need everyone to know is that adult education is so critically important, and right now there's a potential for it to go away. It is proposed to be going away in the president's budget and in the House Appropriations bill, and so we need the Senate funding level to be the one that moves everything forward. So I hope that provides you some context for where things stand. We'll have to see how things play out in the next few days to see where we come back to the government running again, and with your work, hopefully getting adult education continued funding for this current fiscal year. And with that, I will turn it back over to Erin.
Thank you, Elyse, for that thorough federal update and for breaking down the latest in terms of policy and funding priorities. It is always helpful to understand that broader landscape on the national level so we know where opportunities exist for our programs and also where there are some potential challenges. And we are all learning, at least for myself, learning a lot more about civics just based on trying to keep up with what could potentially interact with adult education funding and what would not. So now we're going to pivot to a very practical and actionable part of our session, building partnerships that directly support adult learners in their career pathways. So Heather Tharp will walk us through strategies for finding employer partners and establishing sustainable long-term relationships that benefit both learners and the workforce. Heather's expertise in career development and connecting learners with meaningful employment opportunities makes her the perfect guide for this session. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Heather.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here to speak with you guys today about one of the favorite parts of this work, and that is building those strong partnerships and creating opportunities that will last over time. Because I live in rural West Virginia, I've learned that the most important part of advocacy is starting local. When you start local and you reach out to employers or communities and groups, the relationships there are what matter. You show up where anybody and everybody is, listening, acting, partnering, and trusting these local governing parts such as the legislation, and listing and using your regional development boards if you have those. I am an executive member of our regional development board in West Virginia, so I have the opportunity to be with a lot of prospect employers for our students. So moving with that, building those employer partnerships. When it comes to employers, I always start by always listening and asking, what are your challenges? What skills are hard to find? From there, I build training programs and workshops that tailor to their specific needs with adult education. I wear many hats. I'm also a CPR first aid instructor. I do resume building workshops. I have helped different employers have Microsoft Office training their employees, which opens up a door for me for prospects of our students to become whether interns or employable opportunities with those individuals. Also, when employers see that I'm willing to customize programs for them, they become real partners with me, and they open up opportunities again for other different aspects for employment and even educational. The building those partnerships and then sustaining them is another part. Sustaining those relationships takes consistency and visibility. Absolutely. I always check in often. I invite partners to see our programs in action. I share all of our success stories. I actually build a monthly report with my own region. I do 10 different counties. So we collaborate, and I have them send me every month different things that's happening in their classroom, different achievements, things like that. We build a monthly report. I send that out so they can see what we're doing locally in our programs. This is definitely a great advertisement for us because it is getting out into the community, and that is where I feel that you make the most impact. Strengthening more partnerships. I also have built everything from a dentistry partnership to I work with the Board of Educations. We actually in adult education built an IETP, which is a training program for service personnel, so that our adult education students had the opportunity to go to our local Board of Education, whether it is for a clerk or the kitchen service personnel. We built those things by using adult education and build those partnerships, which lasts and are not quick transactions. Those are long lasting partnerships, and those are very huge for adult ed. Then the next thing I always go after is the legislative component. I have been a very big advocate on legislation this year, as this fellowship has allowed me to be. And Erin knows I have a really impromptu story with Senator Capito, who is our senator for West Virginia, but she's also the GOP chair for education. And one day she was in the woods doing a ribbon cutting ceremony about 20 minutes away from my classroom, and I packed up and I went down there and I followed her on that trail as she did a ribbon cutting ceremony for a bike trail. And with keeping the integrity of our program, I wasn't there to protest. I was there to just have a conversation. And with that conversation has led a great partnership and a great relationship with her aides and her staff. They talk to me consistently. When our funding was held in July, I contacted Todd Gunner, who is her first right-hand man. We worked together. He's wanted all the information. Senator Capito called me. She then went back to Congress and wrote that that letter that had 10 Republican senators that was advocating for our funding. So the little things like that, getting yourself out there, meeting these individuals, putting yourself out for advocacy for your program, showing the success stories, telling that it really does make a difference. With that relationship, I've been invited several times to our local legislative in our capital in Charleston, and I have spoken in terms on adult education, which has been very successful because a lot of these individuals don't really know the whole endeavor of adult education. So it was great to be able to explain that and build that partnership. With that, I've had senators email me, call me. They've came and visited our classrooms. They've come to our events. We send all that out. They've allowed me to one day I went to our minor league team baseball. I got to throw the first ball. With that, became a partnership. We're doing an education day now at our capital, Charleston, for resource employers and with adult education. So making those strengthening legislative connections is just as important, and sustaining and growing those relationships by keeping vigilant, staying in connection, following up, and inviting them to the roundtable or to our development boards. Just building those relationships locally is where it can truly begin. And then you just want to make sure that you're always standing out, and make sure that you absolutely highlight your student successes. That's the most important thing, because hearing from those students is worth more advocacy than what you and I really can bring to that table. When they see the success, they see how much importance that we really bring. So I really just recommend that you start locally in your areas. I mean, I even go to parent-teacher conferences, even though we're adult education. The parents come to us because they look at their children who are looking for a stepping stone into their post-secondary life. And then they're like, well, maybe we can do this. So that's why we go to any and every event. And I try to put our name out there and go and visit and help these employers in our communities the best that I can. And that's how we find our partners and we build those relationships. And I'll give it back to Erin.
Thank you so much, Heather, for those practical insights on finding those employer partnerships, building strong, sustainable relationships, and all those strategies that give us a solid foundation for connecting learners to those real career opportunities. So next, we're going to take it a step further, and Dr. Debbie Faubus-Kendrick will show us how to leverage those employer partnerships through advocacy, taking those relationships to the next level, not only to support learners, but to influence policies, practices, and systems that strengthen adult education. And with that, I turn it over to you, Debbie. And Debbie, you are still muted. So maybe on your phone, you are muted. Nothing yet. I will give you some time to test that out. I know that Debbie is joining from not the main office today, which I think all of us in, in adult education. Let's see if maybe Bethel, can you help?
Yes.
Any advice?
Debbie, I'm asking you to unmute. Should be able to speak.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Oh, hallelujah. Good grief. Okay. What I was saying was a lot of the things that I have to say are like Heather, and maybe add some more, but I haven't chased anybody down a trail yet. But Heather, I admire you for doing that and everything that you're doing. One thing that she did mention, and one thing I want to say that is very important, is to meet those employers where they are. I have I guess you could call it a strategic plan. And at least every month, if I haven't contacted a new employer, I try in our area. And I just go and plant a seed and get to know them. And I try to make sure that we have some kind of connection. We have in our area, and I don't know if they do anywhere else, what they call business after hours. And it's put on by our chamber. And that gives me an opportunity to meet a lot of the employers. And then I too am on the workforce board. So that is also a good connection. If you're not doing that right now, you need to do that. My staff laughs at me because of all the meetings I go to, just civic meetings, and it's not necessarily, I mean, I guess I am civic minded, but it's not just because of that. It's because I get to know people. I get to see them in a different area rather than work, and get to talk to them about it, and then set up a time to go to their plant and look at what they're doing or their business, and then say, hey, we're doing this in adult ed, we could do this for you, and just kind of offer up that caveat, and then, you know, later on maybe come back and talk to them. It's very important that you nurture all those relationships, and I, like Heather, stay in touch with them. We have what we call our stakeholders email list, which is about 300 people, and we send out everything on that. If there's a success story, our daily, our monthly newsletter, anything that's going on our campus, we reach out to them to let them know what's going on. I think that that's so important, because so many people, so many of the times when I talk to them, they say, hey, I didn't know adult ed did all that. And we do a whole lot more now, as you all know, than we used to do. About 10 years ago, I started a relationship with Simmons Foods, which is in Arkansas, and I think there's some in Missouri and maybe around the rest of the country. And it started out very simple. We just did a literacy task analysis on some of their jobs, because they had people that couldn't understand what the directions were, the safety precautions were, and those kinds of things. Well, come to find out, it was because they couldn't read on that level. So we started classes there. And over the years, it has evolved into different things that we do for them. We have done computer classes, Excel classes for them, whatever they needed. Well, now we are on a much larger scale. It's built up to this. We have close to 400 employees now that we are upscaling with them in Amatrol. And this is all over Northwest Arkansas, and it has become massive. But this took time to build this. This took persistence and getting to meet them and seeing what they need and going through their chicken plants and, really talking to them about what are your needs and what we could provide for them. But like I said, we make them part of our team. On our board in Arkansas, we are required to have 51% of business and industry on our boards. And that's, at first I looked at that like, wow, that's going to be impossible. Well, it's not. It's real nice to have those people on board, and it changes every few years, so you get to know more of them. You even get to know them on a personal level. We also have job fairs where we invite all of them to the job fairs. If we have an open house, we invite them, and as Heather said, we always invite legislators. And the business people that I come in contact with, I try to have discussions with them if they do know the legislators, because to me, their voice is more powerful than mine. I'm looking at it from, I'm the director and this is what I want to do for us. But when you look at your partners and you've helped them, they can speak volumes to what you do and really get the word out there for you. And I want to encourage you, because I've had some incidents, and there's always going to be this, but if you say you're going to do it, do it. If you can't do it, tell them. Because I've been I have cleaned up some situations where people would say, yeah, we're going to come in and do this for you, and it didn't get done. And that left a real bad taste in their mouth. So be sure that if you can do it and follow through. And invite them in anytime you have anything. And like I say, it's just, it's like nurturing any other relationship that you have, your marriage or friendship. You have to stay on top of it because their days change just like ours. I know management changes all the time in business and industry. I didn't grow up in business and industry, but I have a good idea now of how things roll, and they may change tomorrow. So you really have to keep your thumb on what's going on. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here. If anybody needs to reach out to me, I'd be glad to talk to them. Erin, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
Yes, Debbie, before you go, we do have a question in the chat related to your business relationship, or the relationship with Amatrol, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Do they pay you for those services for their employees? How does that partnership work?
Well, right now, the way this is working is we only charge them for the license, and then we enroll the students, and the students are counted in our numbers. So that's how we're doing it at this point. I mean, you could do that. You could do it where you made money, but we're not going to make money on it. But if you decide to do something with Amatrol to upskill, I mean, this means in Simmons that these people, there's 4 levels, just to go into detail a little bit more. And we sat down with them and just helped them design these 4 levels. If the people complete these, each one, they get a raise. So they only pay right now for the license. But if you decide to use Amatrol, reach out to me because we just found out a better deal on the price. So I'd be glad to share that. Does that answer the question?
I believe it does. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. And I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So I do want to share here. I want to take a few minutes here to introduce a new resource that I hope many of you will find valuable. And it's called Engaging Workforce Partners in Advocacy Efforts. I'll share the link after I walk through it. I've been a teacher long enough to know if I share that link, you're going to start looking at it. But I do want to point out a few things about it first. So first, this guide was created to help programs like yours build strong, authentic partnerships with employers and workforce partners, and to bring those partners into the advocacy process. Because policymakers really pay attention when business leaders and employers speak up about how adult education helps them meet their workforce needs. And this resource helps you make that happen, regardless of where you are in that process, whether you have those strong partnerships like Debbie does and like Heather does, or whether you're just starting out in this path. So the guide is, again, designed to walk you through how to identify, engage, and collaborate with employers in ways that feel natural and achievable. It's not about asking employers to do more work. It's about connecting the dots between what they already value and how their voice can help move adult education forward. And by working together, you show that full picture of how adult education supports businesses, strengthens communities, and drives economic growth. So what is inside? Let me switch over. And like I said, I'll share this in the chat momentarily, and we will have it up on our website. We'll also share it in the email that comes out 24 hours after the webinar with the recording, this resource attached, as well as your certificate. So there are 4 main steps here in the guide. One is identifying the right partners. That's where you start by looking at the employers that you already work with. Maybe they host your students for internships. Maybe they've hired graduates from your program, and these are your best first advocacy partners. And then next, connect and educate. because many employers want to help, but they don't always realize how much their stories matter to legislators. And this section gives you key messages and examples to help them help you make that connection. And we also have, oops, I should go back there, offer flexible advocacy options because not every partner can travel to DC or testify at a hearing, nor do they maybe have any interest in doing that, and that's okay. So this guide lays out several levels of engagement from providing a quote or short video to, co-authoring a blog or joining a local event. And then lastly, plan and execute together. So once you've got them on board, this section helps you prepare them for success. And there are worksheets to help plan the story, reflect on what worked, and keep that momentum going. So this guide is really designed to take the guesswork out of how to involve workforce partners in advocacy. It gives you the ready-made tools, practical examples, and a clear process. And by using it, you're not only extending your advocacy reach, you're also strengthening relationships with employers and helping them see adult education as a powerful solution to their workforce challenges. So whether you're just trying to get started, already have an employer relationship in place, this guide can help you take that partnership to the next level. And I will share that right now into the chat so that you can download it. As I said, it'll also be shared in that email that comes out 24 hours after this webinar occurs. And as you use it, we would love to hear your success stories. You can email advocacy@coabe.org to share how it's helping you to build new connections. Okay. So before we wrap up today, I want to thank everyone for the great questions that you've been putting into the Q&A, the engagement throughout the session. And also, if we didn't get to your question, don't worry, we'll answer all those in the follow-up email that goes out after the webinar, though it appears that we got through all of those. So as we move forward in our collective advocacy work, I do just want to take a moment to center us on something really important. And it's that our focus is on all adult learners, whether a learner is working toward a GED, improving their English, preparing for citizenship, or upskilling for a career, every pathway matters. At the same time, we know that highlighting the career and employment pathways of our learners is an especially effective advocacy strategy. These stories really resonate with policymakers across the board and help them see how adult education directly fuels the workforce, strengthens local economies, and supports businesses. So as there is that interagency agreement between Department of Education and Department of Labor, it's more important than ever that members of Congress and leaders across the government understand the essential role that adult education plays in workforce development. So by keeping that connection front and center, we make sure that the value of adult education is recognized, respected, and supported at every level and for every learner, regardless of their pathway. So let's keep that momentum going. Keep telling learner stories, inviting employers to the table, and making sure every decision maker hears just how vital adult education is to America's workforce and the future. Thank you so much for attending today. Again, please make use of that toolkit, that resource, and feel free to send us an email at advocacy@coabe.org if you have any specific questions related to advocacy. Thank you so much.